Bonjour tout le monde. Week 3, Marc-André back from Highlands Golf Club. Week 3 for our golf and fitness program. So we really understood in the first 2 weeks what it is important to do with our spine. So again, we talked about the C posture, the S posture, but really again, what's important is to keep our spine neutral. Now, once we understand like what's the neutral state of our spine, and if we can improve it a little bit better by having done the exercises that we suggested, what we need to focus on now is really how we're going to bend over the golf ball, and then where is that flex point that's going to happen. So really what's going to happen is that we got to make sure that we're going to bend over from the hips, not from the top of the back. So again, we're referring to the first 2 weeks of exercise. I want to keep my spine in a neutral state, and then from here I'm going to bend over from the hips until I feel like my weight is traveling more towards my toes, and then I'm going to flex my knees. Again, this a very good word that you can remind yourself when you're on the driving range or when you're on the golf course is to have a posture that's active. So active versus passive. So you watch any sport on TV, you'll never see any athlete like a tennis player waiting for action. That's going to happen here. He's going to be over the ball, the weight's going to be more towards the toes, and he's going to be ready for action. So kind of the same thing into the golf swing. I don't want to be into a passive position where I'm waiting for something to happen. I really want to make sure that I have enough upper body bend over the ball from the hips, and then from here I can rotate, I can swing because I activated my torso properly because I kept my spine neutral and bend over from the hips. So making sure that we keep that upper or that spine again neutral. From here we're going to bend over from the hips until the weight wants to travel more towards the toes, and then we're going to flex the knees. So Derek has a great set of exercises for you, both for mobility, for flexibility and strength, so you can have a great setup at the golf course next year.
Welcome back, CAF members. Derek, FSI and Certified Titleist Performance Institute fitness coach here with you guys. We're here for the third installment, or week 3 of your golf fitness and swing program. Marc-André had talked to you just in the previous segment about the importance of active versus passive posture in your golf swing. He also said how important it was to hinge from the hips in your setup position, okay? So instead of rounding that upper back and getting all the weight in your toes, or sitting back too much with too much of a bent knee and getting the weight in the heels, he said it's very important to hinge from the hips and get your weight in an optimal position in the feet before you address the golf ball. So what we're going to do for you today, we're going to show you some mobility drills that will help with hamstring, hip flexor flexibility, and also the rotators in the hips, which will play a key factor in being able to hinge the hips properly to allow it to move from the hip joint rather than from the spine in your setup position. So number 1 is going to be, it's a very simple drill here. It's called a forward fold, and we're going to do a little bit of a side reach. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your feet about 1.5 to 2 times the width of your shoulders. From here, we're focusing on hinging from the hips. So I don't want you to just round your upper back as you lean down with it. I actually want you to feel like you're moving your hips back towards the wall in behind you. The back is going to stay flat for as long as you can. And what we're going to do from here is we're going to opposite reach. So left arm goes to right foot. And then we're going to come back to the other side. And we're going to opposite reach, going right arm towards the left foot. Coming back to center, always hinging from the hips. If you don't quite get to your toes, that is completely fine, okay? We're just going to go from side to side here for your repetitions. And we're looking for a stretch in the hamstrings if you're doing this properly, okay? Nothing in the low back. It's really going to be more in the hamstrings. Exercise number 2, we call it the world's greatest stretch. So the world's greatest stretch is a stretch where we're going to tackle a bunch of things in one movement, okay? So try and stick along, follow me with this one. We're gonna start with right leg forward in a lunging position. So the distance between your heel and your knee is gonna be pretty substantial, so you should feel a stretch in the hip flexor on the back before you even start. Opposite hand, so left hand goes to the ground, right foot forward. The first movement is your elbow from your front leg is gonna go towards the instep. If you're somebody who's flexible, it might go all the way to the ground. If not, you're just going to the ankle or the instep. From there, you're gonna add a twist. So I'm gonna exhale, I'm gonna rotate. From there, I'm gonna take that hand and I'm gonna go underneath my opposite arm. And then we tackle the hamstring by sitting back on the heel, straightening out the leg, pointing the toe towards the shin, and sitting up nice and tall. So no round back here. And then you would start over. So I would go back into this position, elbow to instep, rotate towards the ceiling, rotate underneath your supporting arm. You'll get a stretch in the groin area here. And then you're gonna sit back on your heel, leg straight, point your toe towards your knee, and remember to keep that chest tall. This will get hamstring and calf, okay? From there, you'll switch sides, make sure that you're doing it on both sides. Number 3 is gonna be a pigeon stretch with rotation. So a pigeon stretch, what we're gonna do, it's gonna be on the ground. We're going to take the front foot and you're gonna try and get the shin as parallel to the ground, or sorry, to your shoulders as possible on the ground. From here, your back leg is straight. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our hands out a little bit. You should feel right away a stretch in the glutes and maybe the low back on the leg that's in the front. From here, we're gonna reach through, drop the shoulder towards the ground. That'll intensify the stretch in the glute, and then we'll get a little stretch in the upper body. So we're gonna reach towards the ceiling. Inhale, reach through. Exhale, reach towards the ceiling. So as I reach towards the ceiling, I might get something in the inside of the groin and in the upper body. As I reach down towards the ground with my shoulder, I intensify the stretch on the glute on the backside. Number 4, staying on the ground here, we're going to do some, I call these hip wipers. So the hip wipers are gonna be rotational movement side to side, where we drop the knees to 90-90. In terms of the width of the feet, you want them just to be wide enough that as you rotate from one side to the other, the knee doesn't touch the opposite heel, okay? And what we'll do from here is we'll add a lift off. So what I call a lift off is we're gonna turn the body a little bit, and then we're gonna try and get some internal rotation of the hip on the back side. So if you're somebody who doesn't have much, you can lean forward and try and get the back foot to lift off the ground. If you're somebody who has lots of internal rotation, you could do this seated upwards, but it's much more challenging if you are nice and tall. Then if I lean forward, this movement now becomes easier, and then you'll rotate to the other side, and you can do the same thing. So just a little bit of a lift. You'll notice that the first couple times you do this, there might not be much space between your foot and the ground, all right? Number 5, we have the half kneeling groin openers, okay? So what you're gonna do here is you're gonna turn your knee so that it's pointing in the opposite direction. Your knee that's supporting is 90 degrees to that. So you should have basically a 90-degree angle in your hips. Chest is gonna be pointed straight forward. So we're gonna try not to rotate here. And as I lean into my knee, I'm driving my knee forward. I'm still keeping my hips open. I'm getting a spreading of the pelvic area, so a little bit of a stretch in both groin areas, and then I come back up to take that stretch away. So this is gonna be dynamic, where I drive away. I'm pushing my knee back towards the wall here. I want to avoid the knee dropping in, okay? So push the knee out as you guide it this way into your stretch. and then whatever you do on one side on these unilateral exercises, you're going to do on the other side as well. Your last mobility exercise, which will incorporate some balance today, is going to be your single leg airplane. Okay, so single leg airplane is going to be a balance exercise where weight is going to be on one foot. The way I like to do this is put my feet together first to get my center of balance underneath that supporting leg. I'm going to bend my knees slightly, hands out to the side to help with balance. I'm going to hinge from the hips, so I'm sending my hips back towards the wall. I'm going to come to about parallel to the ground if I can, and then stand back up. The key here is to keep the back flat. So I'm keeping the low back arched as I hinge down. Hands out to the side is going to help for balance. And the other thing that I'm thinking is I'm leading with my back leg. So my back leg sweeps back as I hinge from my hip. And then I squeeze my butt and I'll stand tall. If you want to add a little level of difficulty here, you can go airplane to rotation. So I can turn my shoulders, bring it back to center, and stand up. Depending on the level of balance, that would be another option for you. Again, much more challenging because you got to feel the proprioception. The feet are going to be working a little bit more. The calf's going to be working a little bit more. None of this has to be done with weight. It is all mobility exercises to increase the capability of moving and hinging from the hips, which will help you in your golf swing and setup. We'll see you next time for your corrective exercises for your hip hinge.